Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. We had a few little technical errors, but we're all ready to start this year's 2023 3MT. And welcome here to Market Hall. This is a very special event. It's been 3 years, 3 long years since we've been live, in person, and in Market Hall. So let's have another big round of applause for being here. For those of you who know me, I'm sorry. But for those of you who don't, I'm Dr. Michael Eamon. I'm the principal here at Catherine Parr Traill College, which is the downtown campus of Trent University. And we have a special affiliation with our graduate programs, and it is our true honor to be able to offer 3MT and present it this year to you as we have done in the past. And I want to just start, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with Trent University, I'll just put a little slide up there on the, oh, maybe I should use my, clicker, look at that. They gave me a clicker. That was a mistake. This is Trent University, and Trent University and Traill College are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga-Anishinaabe. And before we start, I just want to say how grateful I am for this. And gratitude is so important to things, what we do every day at Trent University. And I'm so grateful to be on these lands, and particularly Traill College, and where we are right now at Market Hall is at a very special spot. Because for time, out of memory, the Anishinaabe and their ancestors traversed a grand portage that went all the way from Chemong Lake down to Little Lake, and we're just on the corner of that portage there. So Traill College, that portage comes down, hooks around Traill College, and shoots out right by where we are here. And for time out of memory, the Anishinaabe and their ancestors exchanged ideas and commodities and thoughts and goods. And I think there's no better way to honor the teachings and honor the keepers of the land for us to be here today in a space of exchange and where students can exchange their ideas with the public. So I'm so grateful that I'm here on these traditional and territorial treaty territories of the Anishinaabe. Maybe we'll just, I have my clicker here. This is the first time we've done this in 3 years, and the idea of having a clicker is just so exciting that I don't know what to do. So let's see what the next slide may present for us. Back slide. There we are. One does not simply have a social life in grad school. Now, I put this up because I know everybody will have a slide to talk to, and I'm actually privileged because I have several slides to talk to, but being a grad student's hard. Anyone here a grad student or know anyone who's a grad student? Just put up your hand, yeah, there's a lot of grad students or people who know grad students here. Being a grad student's hard. It's full of late nights of study. Yes, it's study and hard work, assignments, classes. It is tough, and it's especially tough to have a social life in that. And as you all know, coming out of COVID, it has been extremely tough. And so I would like to have you all put your hands together for the resilience of our grad students. And here's to that social life. I hope that it comes very soon. I think some of the best memes in life are in Lego. And so here, this is a great site. If you haven't been to this Instagram page, please do. This is the Lego grad student Instagram, and they're all memes in Lego. And this one, just so you know, says, greeting his advisor in the hallway, the grad student is not entirely certain that the advisor actually recognizes him. So true sometimes, especially in COVID. So, it is tough being a grad student. There's so many things. And as I said before, there was COVID, which was sort of a dumpster fire for a few years, So we're so happy that the fire is now out, and that the fire now is burning in the hearts of our contestants because they can do a lot of cool things that they couldn't do before. And I mentioned earlier a place called Traill College, and we're a special place because we help give students that social life. We help put on special programs fueled with pizza and other foods. And we help grad students, in other activities as well, such as 3MT and the Simon series where they get to present their research. So I'm so proud to be a part of this and help students come through the dumpster fire with fun things like 3MT, and I'm so glad we can be here tonight. Now, blank slide. A little bit about 3MT. For some people, this is a new experience. 3MT, registered trademark, is, I'm not joking, it is a registered trademark. 3MT is the short form for 3-minute thesis. And when you think of Australia, yes, this is a weird segue. When you think of Australia, you might think of these guys right here. You might also think of these cuddly guys right there. You might even think of beer, a lot of beer. But when you think of Australia after this evening, I want you to think of 3MT, registered trademark, which is the activity that the University of Queensland developed way back in the early noughts. And it became a global phenomenon. And Trent has been doing it for, wow, a decade now, even with COVID. We tried to kind of make it through. There was a couple years where we didn't quite do it because they didn't have provincials, which is a very important part of 3MT. And because it's a registered trademark, we couldn't actually do 3MT when the provincials weren't being held. But we're so fortunate that the provincials are back on this year, and the grand prize winner, wait for it, the grand prize winner here gets $500 and an all expenses paid vacation to provincials, which is in Kingston, Ontario. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be super exciting tonight. So before we begin, we probably should know about the rules. 1 slide is permitted. This is huge. To only have 1 slide is really difficult because I've already gone through, what, 5, 6, 7? And, you know, it's a good thing because, well, okay, I don't want to digress, but I will. I was a grad student once, and my first grad student advisor told me, Eamon, it is always good to have slides when you talk. And I said, why? Is that to be more illustrative and get my point across? And my advisor said, no, it's always good to divert one's attention from your face. So that's why I've had many, many slides here tonight, but I'm so envious of these good-looking contestants here because they only need 1 slide because that's how good-looking they are. But I digress. They can't have any animations or special effects are permitted. None of that kind of thing. So nothing like this at all is permitted tonight. But I can break the rules. No additional electronic media are permitted, so no fancy things can happen. No special sound effects or that. Whoop, click. No additional props, so no hats, no costumes, all the stuff that really makes this kind of thing fun. You have to be straight-laced and serious. This is a serious competition. Click. Presentations are limited, and this is important because it's registered trademark, to 3 minutes maximum. And we have timers here. Hi, Marisha and Aaron. Our timers, and there's a big, you can't see it, but there's a big 3 there. And there's like a countdown clock. Could you lift it for our studio audience? Thank you. The countdown clock. And the clock stops for no one. So it is very serious, the 3 minutes. And all competitors exceeding 3 minutes are disqualified. I added the sad face, because that really is sad. We don't want to see anyone disqualified. But that is the one real serious thing about this, is that they're very serious about the timings. And really importantly, there's no notes. This is all extemporaneous. This is all memorized. This is all coming from back here out to you. And that's difficult. And so just being here, guys, just being here is an accomplishment, and getting up on stage is amazing. And to do it without notes and with 1 slide, wow, that's impressive. Oh, one final thing. No rapping, no singing. This really gets me bummed out because I would love to, like, right now break into song, and I'm sure you would all not like me to do that. But, you know, it'd be great to break out into song, but we'll do that after the presentations today. Now, we have some great judges, and I'm going to introduce them in just a few seconds, but what is the strict judging criteria that you all be measured by this evening? Well, first of all, communication style. Was the thesis topic and its significance communicated in language appropriate to an intelligent but non-specialist audience? Hey, audience, how are you? Do you feel that you're an intelligent but non-specialist audience? I think you are. Let's hear it for our intelligent and non-specialist audience tonight. Comprehension. Did the presentation help the audience understand the research? Did you get what the person said? And finally, engagement. Did the oration make the audience want to know more? And that is really the sweet spot. You know, it's great to come up here and great to talk, but you only have 3 minutes. And the best thing is when people are like, encore, tell me more, tell me more. And that is what we're here about. But before we start, I want to introduce some very special people. We have three incredible judges for this auspicious evening, and the first is Dr. Kathy Bruce. Dr. Kathy Bruce is Vice President of Research and Innovation at Trent University. She is an award-winning professor in the Trent School of Education and the former Dean of Education. Now, as Vice President, she oversees, strengthens, and expands research activity at the university and academia and through strategic partnerships. She holds a Ph.D. from the University of Toronto, an MA from OISE of the University of Toronto, and a BA and a B.Ed from York University. So let's put your hands together for the inimitable Kathy Bruce. Next, we have, we have Megan Murphy. Megan Murphy is an actor, comedian, and an honorary fellow of Traill College. Megan is a local actress, filmmaker, media personality. In 2018-19, she served as the chair of the United Way of Peterborough District Campaign. During COVID, she and her friend Kate Sir staged the popular Veranda Society. Perhaps you saw that, and if you haven't, come to Traill College, and they'll be putting it on again soon. In 2020, Megan was inducted into the Peterborough Pathway of Fame. She is a graduate of York University's Fine Arts Program, the Second City Conservatory Program, and the Documentary Filmmaker Institute at Seneca College. So let's welcome Megan Murphy. And last, and definitely not least, we have Nicole Stevenson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Innovation Cluster for Peterborough and the Kawarthas. She is the founder of the Stevenson Law Group, registered trademark, with over 15 years of Canadian capital markets experience. Nicole holds a JD, that's a Juris Doctor, from Queen's University Faculty of Law, and a Masters of Law with a specialty in securities law from Osgoode Hall Law School. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from York University. So let's put your hands together for Nicole Stevenson. Thank you so much, judges. We're so happy that you're here. We know it's going to be a great competition. Before the lights went out, I did notice a couple muckamucks, or like important people. Now, you're all important. Don't give me, and you're also non-specialist intelligent people as well. But I did see some muckamucks out there. Two deans. That's not their name. That's their title. And I did see Craig Brunetti, Dr. Craig Brunetti, the Dean of Graduate Studies. Let's hear for Dr. Brunetti. And Dr. Scott Henderson, who is the Dean and Head of Trent University, Durham. So let's hear for Scott. And if I missed you, other people, there's also Heather Nicholl, who's also the chair and head of the School for the Study of Canada. Let's hear it for Heather. And I'm sure there's lots of other people that I'm not going to get in trouble with, but I can't see your faces right now, so I'll introduce you later. Next, and this is the part you've all been waiting for, let's talk about the money. Ooh, it's just silence, like, ooh, money. All right, so we'll start at the bottom, because that's where Traill is. Traill College is at the bottom here, and we are giving out $500 for the People's Choice Award. That is an amazing award, and what makes it amazing is that you, non-specialist intelligent audience, will be doing the voting for this award during the intermission. So please pay strict attention to the participants. Get a hold of your form, and pencils will be given out for you to check. Don't vote often, but do vote early, and we want to hear about who your People's Choice is. Number 2, we have the Trent Graduate Student Association, the TGSA, second prize for $500. Now, if you don't know the TGSA, they are awesome. We have some TGSA members in the audience and as participants today, and the Graduate Student Association really cares about the well-being of graduate students at Trent University, and they work hard with the School of Graduate Studies and Traill College to do right by grad students. And so I'm so happy that they could support us in 3MT this year. And finally, our big prize is $500 for the School of Graduate Studies first place prize, which is an all-expenses-paid trip to the Ontario Provincial Finals, again in Kingston, Ontario. So that is pretty awesome. If you have, don't laugh. Kingston is nice. Who's been to Kingston? No hands? Come on, Kingston, it's all right. It's no Peterborough, but it's all right, it's good. So this is super duper exciting. Well, folks, it is now time for the big competition. So, are we ready in the wings? Excellent. Are we ready outside? Excellent in the audience? Yes? Yes, clap. Yes, we're ready. Just a quick note of how this is going to go so it doesn't seem super weird. I'm going to introduce each contestant as they come up. They're going to give their 3 minutes, and then I'm going to come back on the stage and we'll have a little banter. We'll chat with the contestant so you get to know them a bit better, and also that gives time for the judges to finish their tabulations, and then the next contestant goes. So without further ado, it is my honor to invite up Javisha Talagaraja in psychology with their paper, The Impact of Acute Stress on Memory Recall, Unpacking the Complex Relationship. Javisha.
Good evening. Have you ever found yourself in an exam hall struggling to recall information that you learned just a few days ago? This might have happened to many of us, but what if I told you stress is the reason behind this problem? Stress is a natural response to challenging situations, and it's often unavoidable in daily life. But what happens when stress starts to impact our ability to recall important information? That's where my research comes in. Through preclinical animal models, I was able to investigate how short-term stress affects our memory recall of previously learned memory. And what I have found is both fascinating and concerning. I found that short-term stress affects the memory recall of recently learned memory, but does not interfere with the memory that formed a week earlier. This means if you experience stress soon after learning, it makes it more difficult to recall the information later on. But here is the exciting part. You might wonder what happens in our brain that interfere with the memory, previously learned memory. This is the section of the right brain, highlighted in this image, is responsible for memory and decision making. And then I focused on a protein that produced by neurons in this section and found that there is a significant decrease in the level of reelin protein when exposed to stress, as shown in this bar chart. So, is it possible increases in the level of reelin protein can reverse the effect of stress on memory recall? So, to find this, rats were administered with reelin protein before they were exposed to stress. And the results showed, yes, there is a possibility to reverse the effect of stress on memory recall. The relationship between stress and memory is complex. But through research, we can improve the understanding of mechanisms behind stress-related memory disorders. So next time, if you find yourself struggling to recall information, remember, there is hope. With continued research, we can unlock even more solutions to this fascinating puzzle. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. Now, talk about stress being first up. That is incredible. And do you think you'll remember this moment, or do you think stress will get in the way?
So that's, according to my research, I need to start practicing a week ago. So I did a week ago, so I'm good.
Amazing. Well, it sounded good. Now you've been involved with, is it the Lions Club, or can you tell us more about your service club experience?
Yes, so I'm working with Lions Club International, which is a well-known charitable organization worldwide. I started my journey as a Leo member, which is like school members at age of 12, and I'm still continuing with them for more than 10 years now. And currently I'm in one of the advisory panelists who is representing entire Leos of age 18 to 30 years in international. So that's very proud because we advocate for young leaders of future, and we do service for our community.
That is extremely wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's hear it again. That was a great way to start. Sorry. And I'm just looking for the judges. Are we? Oh, they're still tabulating. All right. Well, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Nathan Johnson, a student in psychology, with the paper, The Ethereal Path to Well-Being, an exploration of the connections between spirituality and psychological health. Nathan.
Advocates of spirituality have historically claimed that the traditions can give rise to physical, mental, and mystical benefits. More recently, contemporary discussions on spirituality have permeated Western cultures. You may have encountered some reference to the benefits of spirituality in popular press or on social media. The amount of research on the concept of spirituality has also immensely increased in recent times. But is all of this hype warranted? Is being spiritual actually beneficial? Well, in psychology, connections have been found between spirituality and psychological health. More specifically, relationships have been drawn between spirituality and happiness, empathy, and anxiety outcomes. But before we can understand these connections, we need to determine how spirituality is defined. One popular definition breaks down spirituality into 4 dimensions. The first is that spirituality provides a purpose and meaning in life. The second dimension is a sense of unified interconnectedness, which has been explained as feelings of relationship with all of life and a sense of harmony with others. Innerness is another aspect of spirituality, and this has been defined as an inner strength or ability to overcome negative situations or adversity. Finally, spirituality involves feelings of transcendence, and transcendence has been explained as the experience of rising above the psychological or physical condition. So now that we know spirituality can be broken down into these 4 dimensions, there's question as to whether certain dimensions differentially predict our levels of happiness, empathy, and anxiety. To address this research question, I had participants complete a questionnaire that measured their 4 dimensions of spirituality, as well as their happiness, empathy, and anxiety. And based on this data, I ran a series of statistical analyses to determine which dimensions predicted which outcomes. Based on the data, it was found that the purpose and meaning aspect of spirituality significantly predicted increased happiness as well as decreased anxiety. This was expected, as existential theorists have suggested that having a clear purpose in life can both elevate your happiness as well as alleviate future-focused anxiety. The unified interconnectedness aspect of spirituality significantly predicted empathy. This was expected, as those who have more feelings of interconnectedness would likely be better able to take the perspective of others as well as understand their emotional states. The innerness aspect of spirituality significantly predicted decreased anxiety. Here, the ability to rise above adversity likely protects against these anxious feelings. Finally, the transcendence aspect of spirituality did not significantly predict any of the outcomes. So why are these findings important? Well, they might suggest that one should focus on a certain aspect of their spiritual belief, depending on their outcome of interest. For instance, focusing on a spiritual understanding of purpose and meaning might both increase happiness as well as decrease anxiety. And this type of information is important for interventions that target spirituality to bolster well-being. In all, this research brings us a step closer to understanding how spirituality might provide an ethereal path to psychological health. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's, I'm so proud that, you could be here, and I'm kind of sad because we have a good news, bad news story here, and I think Trent's bad news is somewhere else's good news. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've accepted a PhD to start a PhD program at Simon Fraser University in BC. So
let's hear it.
So yeah, I'm going to be doing research on more contemplative practices like mindfulness, and especially in the context of human development, so development across the lifespan.
That's amazing. Now, what got you into this in the first place? What was that moment that you're like,
Well, my family's always been pretty spiritual, and probably early high school, I kind of started to explore spirituality, meditation, things like that myself, and now I've had a a meditative practice for probably 10 plus years at this point, so that kind of gave me the passion to go on and do this type of research.
Now, psychology is seen as sort of an empirical type of study, and spirituality is not very empirical. How do you square those 2 ideas?
Yeah, so that was one of my big goals, actually, because there's qualitative type of research where they might interview people who are spiritual and things like that, but that's why I want to do a kind of predictive type of exploration here. Of course, there's not the same richness as there might be with interviews, but I was able to find some interesting outcomes in the end anyway, so.
That's wonderful. Let's put your hands together again. Thank you, Nathan. All right, now we're on to Nick Westflog, who's in environmental and life sciences with his paper, Naturalization and Invasive Species Management. Nick.
Some of you may be familiar with this flower here. Perhaps you've seen it while walking in a wet area near your house. As my supervisor Eric might say, it's kind of pretty, isn't it? This flower is purple loosestrife. Did your view of it change, knowing what it is? If so, why might that be? Well, purple loosestrife used to be public enemy #1 in the 1990s. It has become basically a byword for invasive species. But where is it now? It is as though its immediate notoriety and threat have begun to disappear from our minds, but I would suggest that this is not without good reason. It was never the enemy and villain it was cracked up to be. Did you know, for instance, that it has been present in Canada since the early 1900s? I would suggest that what has happened to purple loosestrife is that it has naturalized. But what does that mean? To myself, what that means is that it has connected to the food web and integrated into the ecosystem. But when we make invasive species management plans, we don't account for this. And I think it would be better if we did. This other flower here is the one that I studied. Its name is fanwort. It has been present in the Kawarthas for 30 years, and what I did in my thesis was to repeat a study that was done in 2007 in Kashabog Lake. In that study, I sampled the bugs and plants in a series of sites. Some of those sites had fanwort in 2007, some of them didn't. What I wanted to see is if I could observe fanwort naturalizing within the time frame between 2007 and 2022, and indeed, that is what I think I saw. In that time frame, in the sites that had fanwort, there was a significant decline in the abundance of fanwort, and the diversity and richness had increased to such an extent that those sites looked almost like the sites that had no fanwort in 2007. It had not changed the way the community operates fundamentally, and any differences in the invertebrate community, none of them I could attribute to fanwort. But why does this matter? It matters because we use a lot of resources to manage invasive species, and trying to eradicate plants has never worked, never worked. Where was I going with this? We tried to eradicate purple loosestrife, but perhaps some of the older folks remember Project Purple. That didn't work. But this doesn't mean we need to despair. Species integrate over time. And even though perhaps ecosystems with invasive species are not our perfect image of how things should be, we should at least manage planning for the fact that species do naturalize and that could be okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nick. No, don't run away, don't run away. That's great. I have my notes here because every contestant has been asked a question, and Nick gave a really interesting answer to his question. So this is the question that every contestant was asked. What do you like to do when you're not working on your thesis? And the response was, like and dislike cannot tell you what is wise. So I thought, wow.
Ask a better question.
No, I'm like, wow. So that's an answer that really perplexed me. Well, didn't perplex me, intrigued me. So could you explain, and I think I'm starting to get your kind of ideas about like versus not like, and what is beautiful and what isn't beautiful, and is that it all fits into kind of your thought?
I think that, for me, perhaps you're going to mention the other answer to one of the questions, and I'm going to go there first.
Okay, maybe. You go there.
My perspective on my life shaped greatly by having some significant mental health problems. I had a psychotic episode, and what helped me from that relates strongly to what was talked about before, but by Nathan. But I found that the things that made me well were not the things that I liked or disliked. They were the things that were truly and deeply important to me. And so that was why I answered as I did.
Thank you, Nick, and we appreciate the journey you've been on, and let's put your hands together for Nick. Thank you so much. I'm always amazed up here, folks. The level of intelligence, the talent that we have up here in our contestants, this is a special evening, and it's just begun. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Egan Henderson, a student of cultural studies, for his paper Trans Embodiment in Virtual Reality. Egan.
What does gender look like in a virtual world? What does it look like in a physical world? For our purposes, we're going to say that gender is the identities and presentations that we find ourselves inhabiting in whatever world we're in. An avatar is an extension of yourself across the barrier of the virtual and the physical. You see that the avatar you're playing in a game represents you as the player. As this player avatar idea comes into being, we can recognize that there's a feeling of embodiment that allows you to be that avatar. From this feeling of embodiment, we break it down into a sense of embodiment, which is further broken down into 3 subsenses. These subsenses are self-location, body ownership, and agency. Self-location talks about if the space you find yourselves in, like we are here in this theater, is viable for you to be placed in. Does it physically make sense as a space? Body ownership is about the body you become placed in the virtual world. Does that body make sense? Is it viable for you to be in this body? And is it meaningful to your own representation of yourself? Agency is about control. Are you in control of the body in a way that feels good to how you want to be in control of the body? If you have 2 hands, 2 legs, and a head, and you're moving around a body in virtual reality, you want that body to match with your movements. So we can see that in virtual reality, when you have an avatar that you're playing as, you are that avatar. From this sense of embodiment, we get that you become embodied directly in the avatar that you are playing, and that this way of playing allows you to explore and experiment with your gender identity because you can see yourself in that avatar. From this idea of these 2 different bodies, I'm drawing on Legacy Russell's glitch feminism, which talks about how you have an online and offline personality and how these are kind of 2 distinct parts of yourself that are also the same person. And so as you recognize these 2 distinct aspects of yourself as one, you can go into virtual reality, you can look at yourself in a mirror, and you can recognize that the body you are placed in is your body. What you can do is experiment, explore with that gender identity. You can put on different clothes, you can change how your body looks, you can change how you sound, you can change anything you want in a video game, and it's a lot easier to do so than in real life. There's a lot less inhibitive in a virtual world than it is in a physical world. Overall, you can see that embodiment allows you to be an avatar. Thank you.
That was great, Egan. Thank you so much. I was looking at, at your bio, and of course you like to play video games, and I think my son's playing Skyrim right now as we speak, so that might make you feel happier, and I'm not, depending if you're a Skyrim. Are you a Skyrim fan?
I got back into it recently,
Yeah.
so I've been finally replaying through Skyrim, and it's been good to be back in the space because I played Skyrim when it first came out and then hadn't touched it for 10 years, and I was like, oh, it's a good game.
Yeah,
You kind of forget that there's all these really good games that came out so long ago, and you just get a chance to actually finally finish them years down the line.
Yeah, no, it's good. A good game is a good game, regardless. But that's a video game, and also you say you like to play Magic: The Gathering, which is also a thing that my sons taught me. By the way, don't have your sons ever teach you games like Magic, because they're like, play this card, Dad, blammo, and then it kills me, and oh, you should have played this card, right? Are you that kind of Magic person, or are you do you kind of like a Magic hustler, you can pick one to the game?
No, I mostly play for fun with my friends, and we're not taking it too seriously most of the time. It's just hey, we'll play together, have a chance to chat, just get to talk and catch up with each other while also playing a game at the same time. The focus is kind of in between the game and just hanging out as friends.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will. Magic or video games? Do you like the corporeal, the real game, or do you like the virtual game better?
I feel virtual is definitely where I feel at home. At a computer, sitting at my desk just playing a game, I could do that for hours on end. Eventually, I'd get tired in real life and have to go back to the virtual world, return to cyberspace, and jack in, as it were.
You heard it here, folks. You need a little bit of both. All right, let's put it together for Egan. All right, now it's time for Jordan Till, a student in psychology with Paint Me a Picture, Longitudinal Symptom Stability in Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Jordan.
Obsessive compulsive disorder can be incredibly difficult to study and treat. And one of the reasons for this is that aside from the cliches of like the hand washer or the germaphobe, obsessions and compulsions can center around literally anything that is subjectively important to an individual. So what this means is that under our current diagnostic criteria, you can have huge groups of people who have the same diagnosis, but who have wildly different symptoms from person to person. And this between-person difference is problematic enough, but then we also see that people's symptoms change and evolve over time. So this variance causes a lot of complications and problems when it comes to trying to diagnose and treat people with OCD. Now, pointillism is an art form. I find it fascinating, but an artist will take seemingly unrelated bits of information and group them together in a way where when you step back and look at the literal big picture, meaningful details start to emerge. And we're finding similar things in the OCD data, where with specific data reduction techniques, we're finding replicable categories of symptoms based on the way that they cluster together. And the neat thing with these categories is that they uniquely predict meaningful outcomes and associations. So if we're following this analogy, if you think of each individual dot as a symptom, someone who has symptoms like the sky, so someone with sky OCD, may react reliably different to a certain treatment than someone who has water OCD. Or someone who has boat OCD may have different neural correlates or genetic predispositions or risk factors than someone who has castle OCD. So these categories seem to matter. But if you remember what I said before, symptoms change over time. So in my research, I'm speaking to people who have obsessive compulsive disorder. We're building comprehensive symptom histories to see if someone is like, who starts with boat OCD, is likely to still have boat OCD, despite small changes, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Because if we can show that these constructs are temporally stable, it lends validity to the idea that they are meaningfully separate constructs, and we may be able to use them to add further specificity to our diagnostic process. We know that our current resources are overbroad. We know that there's room to continue to make them better. We hope that understanding longitudinal stability of symptoms can help us paint a better picture of obsessive compulsive disorder. Thank you very much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. I was just looking through the notes again because what a stunning image. And a guy named C.P. Snow talked about how science and arts were in two separate spheres, separate solitudes, two solitudes. And then Stephen Jay Gould, a little bit further down the line, talked about the magisteria between science and arts. But I think you very effectively showed today that they're actually arts and science are so separate.
It's fantastic.
And could you talk that, because you have perhaps a bit of an artsy kind of background. Could you talk about, and maybe how arts influences your work?
Sure. I am back in school. I graduated from Sheridan College in their music theater program in 2011. I worked I'm still doing small stuff in acting, but I did that full time for the better part of 10 years. Did a lot of theater and a lot of interacting with people. Theater's a great way to meet a large variety of people, and I think learning how to communicate certain ideas in ways that are creative and maybe a little bit different than you would otherwise approach them is something that has been a very obvious crossover from the arts into the sciences.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's put it together for someone who brings
Thank
it
you
all
so much.
together. Thank you so much. All right. Now we have Connor Lishner in psychology with Technically in Love, Desire for Intimacy with Robots. Take it away.
Sex robots. Now that I have your attention, I want you to think of a robot that looks human and behaves in a believably human way. Now, this robot, is it someone or something that you'd want to be friends with? Maybe you want to have a little intimacy with? My thesis focused on the beliefs that might preclude someone to want to have sex with or be friends with a robot. The importance of this project is manifold. You see, if we listen to things Elon Musk says, then robots might be here any day. However, if we think of classic science fiction, like iRobot or Blade Runner, robots have always been corollaries for forced labor or slavery. In fact, Robotnik, which is what later became robot, and it's Robotnik in the original Czech, meant forced labor or slave. So my project focused on how does this belief about slavery or lowerness relate to wanting to have sex with or be friends with a robot? So what we used is group prejudice, which is my group is better than your group, as well as hostile sexism to say, men are better than women, to see if people were interested in this type of relationship. I was also interested in gender playing a role, since science fiction is typically more male-centric or written by men, so I wanted to see if that played a role as well. What we saw is that people who were lower in this group dominance orientation, this my group is better than your group, they were more interested in sex with robots if they were male, and more interested in friendship with robots if they were female. At higher levels of this variable, there was no gender difference. Men and women were equally interested in friendship and sex with robots. As well, hostile sexism predicted for men only a higher interest in sex with robots compared to men who were lower in hostile sexism, as well as women overall. So what does this mean? Well, think about it. What does it mean when men who believe that women are lower than them want to own and have sex with a robot? What does it mean when people who believe that, based on the color of skin or religion or whatever, that they want to be friends with or have sex with robots more than people who don't have those beliefs? I want you to pay attention to this slide up here. No, it's not math, and I apologize for making you think it was for this long. This is binary code. This is how computers initially communicated with each other, sent data back and forth, so on and so forth. Robots might one day run on binary code, or they might run so advanced that we might be able to actually be friends or have sex with them. So let me translate this for you. When we have these relationships with robots, will we want them for friendship, for sex, or for obedience? Thank you.
Wow, that was great, and so many thoughts going through my mind about robots and the way we see them, and what do you think about people who sort of yell at Siri and things like is this kind of the people you get frustrated, like, come on, Siri, and can robots, I guess, elicit more human behavior from humans? Even though we somehow park the idea that they're a robot. Is that sort of what your research is getting at?
Yeah, I'd say so. So I might answer your question with another question.
Okay.
So what is the default voice for Siri?
Isn't that some woman who had her voice ripped off, that she did all these phonetic...
Exactly,
yeah.
right? It's a woman,
Yeah.
right? Cortana,
Yeah.
female named, female voiced. I don't know the other ones, but a lot of them do also relate to that. And this is somewhat by design, because people view, stereotypically, women as more nurturing, as more, communal, versus men, which are more individualistic, more aggressive, things like that. And so a female voice is meant to be yelled at, basically, and that's why we have these, default coded women, robots, things like that. And that's something that's really interesting as well, because when you have like these robots in sci-fi, you have all of these, attractive, feminine robots a lot of the times, right?
It's like Cylons or things.
Exactly. And the point is most of these sci-fi things were written by men. And so they were written in order to create a character that someone can attach their attraction to, and hope that one day that there will be a robot for them as well. Something that I like to make this joke: why do robots have nipples? They can't give birth. They can't, sire children. They can't, do all these things. So why do they have this trait that is only, associated with, feeding young or things like that? It's all for the male gaze. And that's something that I find really interesting and partially what led me to this project.
Yeah, and I guess that it also helps them traverse across that uncanny valley, right? The more
Exactly.
real they look, the more, wow.
Exactly.
That is amazing. It's a lot for us to think about. And
I'm sorry.
no, never be sorry for making us think. Let's hear it. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, and now it's time for Uzma Danish in our interdisciplinary social research program with Love Me Not, Exclusion of Culturally Diverse Seniors. Uzma.
Good evening. Do you know, we all have something in common. We are all aging. Research shows, however, that we don't all experience aging similarly. For instance, aging is complex for racialized individuals who experience barriers to accessing equitable resources. Let me give you an example. Publicly funded community senior centers are designed to provide programs and services for all aging adults for their health and well-being. However, the operations make them, the services that are operated predominantly cater to the services of Caucasian individuals. This alienates those individuals who are from diverse cultures or experience language difficulties, leaving them on the sides, on the margins, thinking, how do I ask for help? Do I fit in? Can you imagine being one of those individuals? My mother-in-law experienced that. Because she did not speak English, she could not go up to the center and ask for help. She could not enjoy all what the senior center had to offer to all its members. She was devalued, felt unwelcomed, and was not able to participate in the community that she lived in. And she was not alone. Many racialized individuals experience similar challenges, and as a result, they stay home, socially isolated, and also experience negative outcomes. Senior centers are out there connecting with diverse communities and broadly advertising that we welcome all. However, are failing to meet the needs of the racialized aging communities. According to 2021 census, 28% of Durham region's population was 55 plus and over, and 20% of those individuals are racialized. And that number is rising, alarming service providers to take actions. Therefore, my research is very timely because it centers the experience of racialized individuals, it explores the exclusionary mechanisms, and foremost, it collaborates and partners with the community because taking care of all our seniors is our common responsibility.
Wow. Talk about landing it right on the button. That was great. You are an amazing person. You're such a supporter of Traill, and we support you in grad studies. And I was reading your bio, and there's a lot more amazing things. Like you have a super duper green thumb. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. My husband and I, we're both very interested in growing indoor plants and outdoors. Last year, we worked, 2 years ago, we worked diligently to organize our backyard. And the way I got my husband interested in was that, we were going to use the pavers to pave the backyard. And so I said, let's get some estimate. And he said, okay. So long story short, I ended up taking him to the shop to get all the all this stuff, and we ended up building our own backyard and have vegetables like strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, grapes, and seasonal vegetables as well. So we both enjoy that and enjoy all our vegetables throughout the summer.
Well, that is wonderful, and I'm so glad you have that, because your research is so important, but it is also, it can be sad and intense, and you've opened our eyes to so many, issues with racialization and aging, that I'm so glad you also have other parts of your life that can bring you out of that. Do you find it helpful to be in the garden sometimes to pull you away from some of these bigger issues?
Oh, very much so, and I think this, because this is a very personal issue for me, because we, as I said, we are all growing, and so am I. And when I am at that age, I don't think I'm going to have the strength. So this is my way of paying forward. So when I am ready to receive those services, they're not only for myself, but also other members of the community as well.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for this. Put your hands together. Thanks, Isma. And now it's time for Samantha Hurry in Sustainability Studies with Providing Human Connections to Our Food Sources. Samantha.
We all eat food, but what do you know about where your food comes from? There's no real connection between the food we eat and where it comes from. Most people live disconnected from food production. Why is this important? Well, let me tell you. Multinational corporations can take advantages of these disconnects to increase their market share. However, resilience depends on different scales of diversity. I'm a little nervous. But you see, it comes from knowing that it's where we have these different scales, and these scales show us that where our food comes from. So, large-scale food productions are vulnerable to such things as natural disasters, diseases, and climate change. Let's move on to the pictures. All right, so up here we have honey extracting taking place, bonding with animals, and apple harvesting and apple pressing. Now, these connections can't always happen at large-scale farms. In high school, on career day, I wasn't allowed on the premises even because my father worked at a hog facility. And can there be a connection with agriculture if you're not even allowed on the premises? No. So, starting with my own farm, where these pictures take place, my research is focusing on small-scale farms. I want my research to inform zoning laws where these connections can take place. My bigger purpose is to allow a place for people to connect with agriculture. And I hope that those that aren't able to are able to have that chance. Thank you for your time and your patience.
You did a great job. Thank you. What a recovery. That was incredible. Thank you so much. Let's hear it. But your story is fascinating. And could you tell us more? What got you into sustainable farming?
Oh, what happened was it started off with catching 2 rabbits that my neighbor actually had a homestead, and their small, like their operation had, they had chickens and pigs and goats and eventually little cute lambs too. And I've got 5 boys. And so, and obviously another baby on the way. And that's a lot of mouths to feed. So we started off catching 2 rabbits because my neighbor's rabbits got loose, and 2 rabbits turned to 22 over 1 winter. And then we added a chicken per kid so that they each had their own eggs, because eggs are never going to stay in the fridge for long at my house. And then from 5 chickens turned to 50 chickens over a couple years.
That's amazing. It sounds like you came here for a break, you know? It's so we're so happy you're here. Thank you for coming out. And let's put your hands together. Wow, again, our contestants are so amazing. I just can't get over it. And wow, that's so much fun, you know, so many great things ahead. We're not even halfway, folks. There's so many great presentations ahead of us, and so many great contestants. And so I'm happy now to introduce Beatriz Bento in Environmental and Life Sciences with Tracing Mercury Transformations in Aquatic Environments. Beatriz.
Hello, everyone. I bet you all recognize mercury from that image. That is liquid mercury. However, in the environment, mercury is found at trace levels, and it's not visible to the naked eye. This is a photo of the river that I'm studying. Does it look contaminated to you? Not really, right? But it is, in fact, highly contaminated with mercury coming from a factory that operated in the 1960s. And even though the mercury pollution from that factory stopped several decades ago, to this day, the harmful effects of mercury are still felt by the local communities that feed on fish from that area. You see, the thing about mercury is that it's a natural element, and it stays in the environment forever. Most importantly, in aquatic environments, mercury can be transformed into an organic form called methyl mercury, which is even more toxic because it can be easily taken up by organisms and be accumulated in the food chain. In fact, more than 90% of mercury found in fish is methyl mercury. Undeniably, this transformation of mercury into methyl mercury, called methylation, it's a critical step towards the accumulation of this toxic metal in the food chain. Because of this, one of the chapters of my PhD focuses on establishing methylation potentials along the river system. Basically, we use a specially labeled mercury tracer, and we add it to water and sediments from different habitats, which include river, wetlands, and lakes, and we measure how much of that mercury tracer was transformed into the more toxic form, methyl mercury. With this, we are able to identify which areas or types of ecosystem along the river have better conditions to produce this more toxic form. These locations represent a higher threat to human health and to the environment. This study brings awareness to the transformations that take place in the river that make mercury more toxic and more available to humans, to fish, and to humans in the end. So the results of this study the results of this study will inform the local communities on risk areas for methyl mercury production and will help develop cleanup strategies in the area. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you so much. Now, I have a question, just like this is my own personal question. the heavy metals that are, so clearly we're getting them from eating fish, right? This is the problem. We're eating the fish, they're getting into us. How are the fish getting that? I'm sure these aren't naturally occurring heavy metals. These are coming from, what's the source of all this heavy metal, the mercury that they're ingesting?
Yeah, I mean, actually, mercury is a natural element, so there is natural sources like volcanoes, for example. But in this case, in the river that I'm studying, it does come from a factory.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's the tailings and that from the factory that's come out. And then how would you mediate that? How would you remediate that situation, or are we kind of screwed?
Yeah, so like I said, mercury does stay in the environment forever. So, yeah, we do have an issue.
Okay, so I'll just add that, plastics, mercury, we just add it to the list of things that are, around and we can't get rid of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm depressed, but I was reading on your bio that you, like half the contestants, raise plants. So is that your hope is that you kind of try to create life in your spare time?
Yeah. Like I mentioned in my bio, they occasionally die, but I do. But I do make an effort.
Well, this is
to
just
keep
a
them alive.
sunshiny evening, isn't it? Well, it's nice to have you up here, and for Warrant is it's good to be aware, eyes wide open, and all that, and you're doing great research, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in the humanities, so science isn't always happy. I get that, but science is important, and I'm so glad that there's people like you doing what you're doing. And I'm also so glad that Shanna Lowe's in Environmental and Life Sciences is here to talk about the health and lifestyle of our future nurses. Come on up, Shanna.
Nurses are leaders in social health change. They've been at the forefront of breast cancer awareness efforts and educating their communities on the consequences of smoking. And they could have this same impact in addressing the obesity epidemic. Obesity rates have tripled in the last 25 years, and while there are policy changes that governments must make, nurses can play a part as well. Obesity is concerning because it puts individuals at an increased risk of heart disease and diabetes. And of course, nurses are involved in managing obesity and related diseases in their patients, but they can also help in prevention by educating their patients on their lifestyle choices. These lifestyle choices are the focus of my research. We have clear evidence that sufficient physical activity, good sleep quality, good nutrition, and reduced stress are associated with the decreased risk of obesity and related diseases. These are all lifestyle factors that we can modify in our own lives. However, despite this, nurses have similar rates of obesity to the general population, are highly inactive, have poor sleep quality, poor nutrition, and high stress. This is likely associated with the demanding nature of their profession. Now, that leads me to my research and what I will be adding to the conversation. Nursing students, like the one on the screen, will be entering the workforce. We have limited information on their health and lifestyle. We need to identify if the same behaviors surrounding physical activity, nutrition, stress, and sleep that we're seeing in nurses is also being exhibited by nursing students. This will help us better understand if these behaviors are beginning before entry to the workforce, and if so, it would point to a need for improving the education surrounding the relationships of health and lifestyle throughout the nursing degree. And how does this impact you? Well, nurses are more likely to promote a good lifestyle to their patients if they engage in it themselves. Additionally, nurses who are obese feel as though the public is less likely to trust their health promotion messages. These are barriers that could impact the health outcomes of their patients. And remember, the nursing students that I'm looking at in my study will eventually be working with real patients like you or me. So it is key that we understand their lifestyle choices and educate them about the relationships that it has with their health. To summarize, we need to prioritize and better understand the health and lifestyle of our future nurses, like my research aims to do, not only for their own well-being, but for the impact that it has on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that eye-opening talk. It's like, is working in the health sciences unhealthy, right? That is a kind of another scary topic, and I'm so glad you're taking that on. But not to minimize your research, because, you found a way to stay healthy through dance. Could you talk about your own way that you stay healthy in your life?
Yes, I haven't done it in a few years now, but for most of my life, I was a competitive dancer, and specifically tap dance, so that was my favorite style, and something I really enjoyed, and it was good for both my physical activity, but also for my mental health and stress. It was a good way to reduce your stress levels too.
And do you think that had something, maybe even subconsciously, in your choice of topic, or that you had this as in your background?
Yeah, potentially. I don't know for sure, but I also did a bit of research looking at the relationships of health and lifestyle factors in my undergrad with my honors thesis, looking at photoperiod, or amount of light exposure in mice, and how that relates to fat as well.
Yeah, no, this is all really exciting. So next steps, where's your research taking you?
So I'm a little further along than what I presented today, so I'm just working on my discussion now, and then, yeah.
That's super exciting. Well, let's put your hands together for another great presentation. Thank you so much. All right. Now it's time for Uka Fu in psychology with How Do You Know Your Parents Love You? Yeah, exactly. How do you know your parents love you? Understanding parental high controlling behaviors from a cultural lens. Uka.
Imagine you're going back home to see your parents. What will they react when they see you? Will they go kiss you, hug you, and say, "Oh, I love you"? Or will they just look at you up and down and go, "You're gaining too much weight, you need to do more exercise"? Well, you're probably thinking the first one, obviously, because the second one crushes children's ability to pursue upon their own interests and value. But you know what? As a Chinese children, my answer will likely to be, well, both of these examples are actually quite loving and caring, and the second one sounds just like my mom. So, why is that? This is one thing we have to understand, is that parenting behavior are culturally bounded action. Unlike Western society, where independence and freedom of choice is such top priority, in Chinese society, parental authority and emotional restriction is actually valued more. As a result, when we try to understand Chinese parenting from a Western perspective, Chinese mothers' language toward their children always seems harsh or even unloving. So, with that in mind, is there any way we can better understand parenting from a cultural perspective? In my research, my money bets on mind-mindedness, which is a mother's ability to treat their children as independent human beings with their own thought and emotion. For example, a mother will be considered as having a high level of mind-mindedness if she keep asking her children, "How do you think? How do you feel? Are you having fun? Are you happy?" Things like that. Therefore, I predict when a mother have a high level of mind-mindedness, their children will have a better ability to understand where is this high controlling behavior coming from, and they know it's a good intention. So, with that in mind, I collect information from both Canadian and Chinese mother and their children through both laboratory observation and maternal self-report. And this is what I find. In both countries, when a mother have a high level of controlling behavior, their children are more likely to experience behavior problems such as aggression or feeling depressed. However, when I put the mind-mindedness into the picture, this relationship look a little bit different in my Chinese sample. Allow me to explain. While Chinese mother is high controlling, but often checking their children's mental state when interacting with their children turn out to be just fine. No aggression, no sadness, nothing. So this research is important because mind-mindedness might be the key component that buffer against children's behavior problem. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Very impressive. The first thing, again, I'm a historian, so I'm sorry, but the first thing that comes to my mind as a humanities guy is like, how did you get your data? Like, how do you say to a parent, excuse me, are you sort of, a high controlling parent, or are you not? I'm sure you don't ask that. Like, how do you, and then both in China and Canada, so do you kind of like sneak them, kind of like in parenting, you put the broccoli in the chocolate, do you kind of sneak the hard questions in the survey, or how do you do it?
Okay, thank you for asking. Very interesting question. So for my study, in order to collect the information about mother's high controlling behavior, I invite the parents over in the laboratory situation and record their interaction with each other. And I will count the number of times the mother criticizes the children or interrupt the children or take over the conversation or even physical punishment. But fortunately, I don't see physical punishment in that sense.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. And now we're going to switch gears a bit, because on your bio, you said you love cats. Is that true?
Yes.
But you also said you're highly allergic to cats. So I just wanted to know, how does that well work?
It's actually a very interesting story. I'm a stubborn person. I really love cats. But once I adopt them, then I realized I have allergy reaction to them. At first, I didn't realize it until every time I cuddle them, it just feels itchy. So nowadays, I just keep them with me and eat allergy pill every day.
All right, that's one solution. Let's put your hands together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that is incredible. Well, we are in the home stretch, fans and friends. We're looking now for Colin Henning in psychology and the paper ADHD in Adulthood, Preliminary Findings from a 15-Year-Old Follow-Up Study. Colin.
So I'd like you to imagine two children. The first is a boy named Justin, whose parents are at their wits' end with him because he can't seem to sit still for more than a few seconds, and instead just runs all over the place without control. The second is a girl named Brittany, who is struggling to pay attention and focus for long periods of time, whether that's for school or in her chores. Now, what do these two kids have in common? Well, they're both experiencing something called ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. ADHD is a psychological disorder, and it's characterized by really two sets of symptoms. There are symptoms of hyperactivity, impulsivity, like what Justin is experiencing, and then symptoms of inattention, like what Brittany is experiencing. We know from research in children that children with ADHD, like Justin and Brittany, tend to experience a lot of different problems in their lives, whether it's difficulties with making friends or difficulties with doing well in school. We also know that these symptoms of ADHD and these sorts of problems that are associated with ADHD tend to persist well into the teen years and into a period we call emerging adulthood, which is about the ages of 18 to 25. In this period, we find that individuals with ADHD tend to have a whole host of problems connected to their ADHD because ADHD affects all aspects of their lives, whether it's their relationships, their careers, or even their health and well-being. What we don't know, however, from previous research is whether we have ADHD persisting beyond the age of 25 and what sorts of outcomes happen with individuals with ADHD beyond the age of 25, because that research hasn't been conducted. For my research, I intended to fill this gap by examining whether ADHD tends to persist beyond the age of 25 into about the early to mid-30s, and what sorts of outcomes we can find for these individuals with ADHD symptoms. What I've found so far is that the symptoms of ADHD are actually so persistent and so stable over this 15-year period that they're actually quite like personality traits, like extroversion or conscientiousness. I've also found that these symptoms of ADHD tend to predict a lot of different problems later in life, including lower relationship satisfaction, lower job satisfaction, and higher levels of stress that interferes with their lives. What these findings tell me is that we really need to be focusing on treatments and the development of treatments in adults who are currently a very underserved population as compared to children. For my PhD, I hope to expand on these findings by looking at older adults to see in older adults whether these symptoms of ADHD continue to persist and what sorts of outcomes they experience. This is to give a bigger picture and a more clear idea of what we can expect for children like Justin and Brittany when they get older and become adults and go throughout their lives. Thank you.
Colin, thank you so much for taking us through that and the importance, between childhood and adulthood. And, we sometimes forget about that transition, that continuum. And this is great research. And looking at your bio, you say you'd like to pursue a career in academia and be a professor. I don't see a problem with that. I think on behalf of everyone here, I think you're well on your way to that. But what I also found interesting about your bio is that you said you like to write stories too. So I was wondering, do you mind telling us what kind of stories you write or what interests you?
So it's funny because I've been writing stories almost since I was a child. I remember as a kid, my younger brother and I would use action figures or dolls to kind of play out plot lines from kind of sci-fi or anything like that we could kind of think of. And so even from then, I've kind of been writing stories, and I find in research that's really helpful because essentially research is a story that you're telling, right? Whether it's individuals with ADHD as children, how they become when they're adults, and kind of creating that picture with research, kind of being able to tell that story is really useful. So I don't tend to write stories about people with ADHD. They're usually kind of like sci-fi and kind of like superpowers, magic, and that sort of thing. But I like to kind of take some of the things I've learned from psychology to inform the way that I design different characters.
That's really great. And you also talked about video games. There's also, I don't know if you know Egan, but maybe you guys, you can to video game together. But you said this talking about Skyrim again. You really like those immersive games that take you places. Do you bring psychology into the video game world as well? Like, do you see video games kind of that way too, or?
Yeah, I tend to think about video games and even characters in movies and TV shows as well. I find it really interesting to get to know the characters themselves. A lot of the time with video games, I enjoy them not for the actual playing of the game and the actual mechanics, because to be honest, I'm pretty poor at playing video games. My brother beats me at every game that I play. But I really like to get to know the characters and kind of see their progression over time, and so that's kind of tied everything together with getting to know their stories.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us, and let's have a big hand, everyone. Thank you. All right, now it's time for Eva Fernandez in Psychology with A Conversation Worth Having, the impact of sexual health education on sexual communication and consent negotiation. Eva.
I want you to think back to the last time you had sex. More specifically, I want you to think about the consent negotiation and sexual communication behaviors you engaged in. Would you say there was verbal consent, nonverbal consent, or no explicit consent at all, just that you've been with your partner a really long time and they know what you like? Would you say there was a script on which behaviors to engage in at hand? Many researchers have provided support for the idea that any and all the behaviors we engage in, including sexual ones, are based on the scripts that we follow. Ones passed down through society and culture, ones that are internal to me or you, and ones that we engage in together, simultaneously. Now, my research is interested in the relationship between one's perceived quality of sexual health education and the sexual consent and communication, feelings, and behaviors that they have at 2 time points: first sexual experience with a partner and most recent sexual experience with a partner, as well as the difference between these 2 time points. Now, previous researchers have found that the quality and quantity of one's sexual health education is associated with positive consent attitudes, intentions to seek consent, and general sexual communication. So we know sexual health education has the power to form our sexual scripts. Whether you were taught yes means yes, no means no, or no consent education at all, just to not have sex because you'd get pregnant and die. These messages presented to us daily can form the sexual scripts that we adhere to, whether it's in our script to ask for consent or to just provide it. Interestingly, my study found that yes, the perceived quality of one's sexual health education is associated with the consent, feelings, and behaviors and sexual communication people engage in. But only at that first sexual experience, that there was a weak, almost insignificant relationship between perceived quality of sex ed and sexual consent and communication at that most recent time point. And when looking at the difference between the 2 time points, we see participants feeling more willing to consent, engaging in more communication and consent behaviors at that most recent time point. Now, there are many reasons why this may be. It's possible that the sexual health education was just not of good quality. But it's also possible that the sexual health education was of good quality and would persist long term. However, the sexual experiences that occurred between those two time points were so influential that it's those experiences that could potentially explain the feelings and behaviors one engages in at that most recent time point. Going forward, I want you to think about the sexual health education you received, as well as the sexual scripts you're currently following, and maybe start to think of ways to challenge those scripts. You can start to think of it as your own sexual revolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow. It's so interesting that you bring this to, and I asked the research question before. I'm going to ask that to you. How do you go about getting your research on this? What was your sample? What are you looking at, and what kind of questions are you asking?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I took a look at two samples. So one using MTurk, which is a more community sample, as well as looking at Trent students. And I asked them about their sexual communication and consent behaviors. So asking them questions like, did you engage in this behavior? Or did you have these feelings? And I asked them the questions twice. So I really do appreciate all the participants that took my survey. It was quite a lengthy one. And they responded to these questions in the context of their first sexual experience, as well as their most recent. And I asked a whole bunch of demographic factors to look at the more contextual experience that one may have had. So I'm really looking forward to analyzing the data and sort of looking at the specifics of their communication and consent, but as well as their sort of intersectional identities.
This is great, and the Trent students, I'm familiar, that's very Canadian. The other database or the other sample that you talked about, is that a North American-wide thing, or is this a Canadian-based type of observation?
So it's Amazon's Mechanical Turk platform, which is based in the United States, but I limit it to just Canadians to keep it within a Canadian context, just because the sexual health education, as we know, is a little bit different in Canada than it is to certain US states, so we kept it specific to Canada.
No, that's great, and I think it's really important because those are those types of things. Is like when you're dealing with so much data, it's nice to be able to kind of really hone in on some great findings, and I think you've really brought some here. And be safe, everyone. Ask for consent, and let's put your hands together, please.
Thank you.
All right. Well, our next speaker is Sandra Clement-Anguessin, who's in environmental life sciences with brown or green in your tea affects your pee, a wet critter's tail. All right. Sandra.
How much of a lake is made of fish pee? This is a question I received several years ago by a CBC radio listener. And although surprising, this question actually touches on an important concept that we may not often think about. Animals in the water do pee. But what is pee to begin with? It is the product of digested food that is not needed for the functioning of the body. And so when released into the water, this urine is full of nutrients that can be easily used by plants. So just like manure in agriculture, urine in the water can act as a fertilizer for plants. So we can imagine that the environment in which the animals live will have an effect on the nutrient content of their urine. One factor that we looked at in my research is the color of the water. The water could be more or less brown, indicating how much decayed plants and animals there is. Or it could be more or less green, indicating how much algae there is. Together, these colors will influence different environmental factors, such as the nutrients and oxygen levels of the water or the temperature. But here's the tricky thing. As climate and land use continue to change, the color of our waters are expected to change. So we asked, does the color of the water affect the nutrient content of animal urine and their role as a nutrient source as our waters continue to change? My colleagues and I went to the field and collected fish, mayflies, and invasive quagga mussels, all animals with different diets, and then looked at them in streams, lakes, and the Great Lake Erie. And then we looked at the nitrogen and phosphorus and carbon content of their urine at 3 different scales: individual, population, and community. And here's what we found. Your environment matters. Animals responded to the color of the water. 2, you are what you eat. Animals at higher levels in the food web had higher nutrient content in their urine compared to animals lower in the food web. 3, we are stronger together. Animals that were gathered at the community level had higher contribution in their urine compared to the overall nutrient pool. So that means that their role was more important with browner water. So, next time that you go to a lake and you swim and you feel like going to the loo, remember, other animals do too. Merci.
Wow. First, I was afraid of mercury. And now, don't drink water, folks. Fish pee in it, okay? So this is what's going. So, do fish do number 2? I'm just asking that.
Do what?
Do fish do number 2 too, or just number 1?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not only pee we have to worry about. There's a whole kind of like, wow. Okay, well, so I normally ask you research questions, but I have to ask, how did you get into this? Like, what makes one think about fish pee?
Very good question. I've always been fascinated by nutrient cycles and how different ecosystems are connected. And I actually didn't know that animals were one source of nutrients as part of the nutrient cycles. So I guess reading about it, I just decided that was something really cool to do.
That is incredible. Now, lightning thing, well, not talking about pee is pretty lighthearted, but you know, this is serious research. But it says here that there's fun fact, you like to dance, you like to cook, you do cooking outdoors. I'm sure you boil the water when you're outdoors. It says you have 3 citizenships and you've lived on 3 continents. That's pretty amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about your worldwide experiences?
Sure. So my mom is French and Tunisian, and my dad is from Côte d'Ivoire. And so I grew up in different countries. I was born in France, and then I lived in Côte d'Ivoire, in Tunisia, in Kenya, and then I lived in the US, and then also in France, and then eventually came here in Canada.
And now right here on this stage in Peterborough talking about pee, this is the height of it all. So thank you. Let's put your hands together for Sandra. All right, folks, what do we have next? Well, we have Ashlyn Kernahan in Environmental and Life Sciences with Rare Earth Elements, a push for technological advancements and their environmental costs. Ashlyn.
Some of you may have heard of the term rare earth elements, and if not, that's okay. They are a group of critical minerals listed in this bubble. I would like everyone to think about your cell phone. Smartphone screens and speakers are made from the rare earth elements highlighted in red. These metals improve the quality of our devices. I never would have thought rare earth elements being such an essential part of our everyday lives. These metals are found naturally in the soils you stand on, the water you drink, and the food we eat, but at minuscule concentrations. They are also found in enriched deposits, which we mine to use for MRI machines, green technology, and our computers. These metals are also in high demand. Only 6 years ago, China monopolized rare earth element trade, and now, in 2023, our Ontario government is creating a $10 billion per year mining sector where rare earth elements will be mined from the Ring of Fire in Northern Ontario and then processed in the south. Now, I'd like you to imagine your favorite lake or river you enjoy visiting in Ontario. Well, this vertical connection from the north to the south will release unpredictable amounts of rare earth elements into our special bodies of water. This should be questioned, as there are no regulations for the release of rare earth elements, and few studies understand their fate or accumulation. We need an in-depth study to determine their harm. That is where my thesis comes in. I have collected water, sediment, and biological samples from a freshwater ecosystem exposed to high concentrations of rare earth elements to determine their risk and accumulation. So far, our results show rare earth elements are heavily accumulative in our primary producers, bottom dwellers, and minnows. Specifically, rare earth elements are getting into the brains of minnows. All vertebrates have the blood-brain barrier, which should prevent environmental toxins from getting into the brain. However, rare earth elements are passing through. This could resemble rare earth element fate in other aquatic vertebrates. We are surrounded by rare earth elements more than ever before in Ontario. We need this environmental research so we can balance mining, the economy, and regulation to ensure that our future Ontario waters stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashlyn. That was, again, very eye-opening in that, especially with the blood-brain barrier and how the metals are going through. Will that happen to people too, or is it now just in kind of aquatic vertebrates right now?
Yeah, right now, well, this is preliminary findings.
Right.
So with this information, there's been some other research looking into the MRI technology and seeing if this could be harmful to humans, but it's perfect to, go to the bottom of rare earth element mechanisms so then we can understand if this could be harmful for organisms and individuals like us up the food web.
No, this is so important research, and I'm so glad that you're looking at it. And on your bio, it said you were big into outdoor camping. So did you come about this research being a camper and seeing perhaps environmental damage, or did you become a camper because of you started hanging out a lot more outdoors doing your research? Which came first?
I think the passion for water chemistry came first. I grew up in Long Point, Ontario, if anyone knows that. It's in Lake Erie.
Oh, okay.
So I was really passionate about keeping that environment safe. So that came first. And then actually camping came in when I went to Trent for my undergrad. I was involved with Trent Outdoors.
Oh, cool. That's a great club.
Yeah, it's really great. So, yeah.
And so water chemistry started all. You also do a little bit of chemistry at home in baking sourdough every week. You say you bake a loaf every week of sourdough?
Yes, I just got a starter from a friend, I think 2 months ago, and instead of buying bread, I love to bake it. So satisfying.
Isn't chemistry great, folks? This is the era to live in. Let me, in a great time. Sourdough and incredible research. So let's hear it for Ashlyn. Thank you so much. All right. Next, we have Sarah O'Connell in Environmental and Life Sciences with Effects of Oncology Camp on the Psychosocial Health of Childhood Cancer Patients. Sarah.
I want you to take a moment and imagine your childhood self. What's your day-to-day life look like? You probably go to school, play with friends, have fun at recess. But what if I were to tell you that this would change completely? Instead, you're in the hospital, receiving painful procedures and treatments that make you feel sick and tired. You may lose your hair. You don't get to see your friends from school very much, and you miss them. But this is what happens when you have cancer. Childhood cancer patients face significant adversity and miss out on developmental opportunities like hanging out with friends because of treatment. This can have a negative effect on their psychosocial health, which encompasses social, mental, and emotional health. However, oncology camps may offer a solution. Oncology camps provide kids with cancer a traditional overnight summer camp experience, except all activities are accessible. There's medical staff on site to support the medical needs of kids, and these kids are surrounded by and can develop friendships with other kids who can relate to their experiences. Oncology camps foster a sense of community, and they focus on allowing kids to be kids instead of on their cancer. When I worked at an oncology camp a few years ago, this is what we called the magic of camp. Through my research, I investigated the psychosocial impact of oncology camp on childhood cancer patients. Our team collaborated with Campfire Circle, which is an oncology camp in Muskoka, and collected data from kids attending one of their camp sessions. The kids who participated completed a survey on the first and last day of camp, as well as 3 months after camp. This survey contained validated measures which scored them on their levels of resilience, hope, social support, and mental well-being, which all contribute to overall psychosocial health. We also collected saliva samples on the first and last day of camp, and from those I could determine the kids' stress levels by measuring the amount of the stress hormone cortisol within the sample. I found that childhood cancer patients have very high levels of resilience, social support, hope, and mental well-being while at camp. Their stress levels were also within a normal, healthy range, which indicates that they were comfortable and it wasn't an overly stressful environment for them. Overall, my findings suggest that oncology camp is a positive environment that may promote the psychosocial health of childhood cancer patients. And perhaps my research also supports the existence of that true camp magic. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Amazing work, and I know you're passionate for it, and we're going to talk a little bit about your other passions in a second, but what would you like to see the results of your research? What, if you could hope for your results to be told to someone or to be, a decision made, what would you like to see these results go towards?
I would love to see more kids get to go to camp. I worked at the camp a few years ago, and you can see anecdotally how amazing this camp is and the impact that it has on these kids. But it's really cool that my research has shown that as well. I would love to see that go towards allowing more kids to go experience.
And I guess there's financial barriers. Is that the biggest barrier for more kids going to camps like this? Or?
So the camp is fully funded, and so it's free for kids to go. But yeah, if they could get more funding to those camps, then maybe it would be possible for more children to attend.
And this is not your only interest. You're also a swimmer, and you work with the Special Olympics swimming team, or?
Yeah.
Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've been volunteering with Special Olympics since my first year, the swim team here. And it's such an amazing community. They've really welcomed me in, and I've got to build that relationship with them over the last 5 years. And yeah, they're just a really awesome group, and I'm very lucky to be able to coach for them.
Well, we're very lucky to have you on stage right here. Let's put your hands together. Thank you so much, Sarah. And now it's time for Kalaka Hebert in psychology to come up and talk about sexual agency, a key ingredient for sexual well-being. Kalaka.
Take a second to think about the best cake you've ever had. Think of how happy you were and how good it was. Now, what if I told you that you could never have the recipe to bake that cake and that you didn't even deserve to eat a slice? Unfortunately, this is what women are taught about sex. Young girls are told by parents, peers, society that they aren't entitled to sexual consideration, and they're not afforded the tools to enact fulfilling sexual encounters in the same way that men are. Women are rarely given the ingredients to create positive sexual encounters. One key factor in promoting sexual well-being is sexual agency, or how equipped and empowered one feels to enact gratifying sexual encounters. You can think of sexual agency as a recipe card. It provides individuals with the instructions and the ingredients to create better sex. But to what extent does sexual agency really impact one's life? Well, I aim to determine if having greater sexual agency was associated with more satisfying and less regretful experiences. I asked participants to evaluate their most recent sexual encounter and ask them about their agency using behavioral components like assertiveness and direct communication, as well as cognitive components like self-efficacy and self-esteem. They were also asked to list the reasons why they engaged in sex. Participants with greater sexual agency listed more personal drives for engaging in sex, such as for the physical pleasure or amusement. But those with lower sexual agency listed more external reasons for engaging in sex. For example, due to social pressure or to please a partner. In other words, sexual agency can help individuals make more autonomous decisions. There's also support that sexual agency can produce more positive outcomes while protecting against negative ones. Those with greater sexual agency listed more internal consent feelings in their encounter, used more consent behaviors, reported greater sexual satisfaction, and lower instances of regret. I also found that agency can help promote individuals' comfort in refusing unwanted experiences. To conclude, sexual agency is a key and crucial component to sexual well-being. And by determining the ingredients needed to create more positive and fulfilling encounters, we can provide youth, and especially young women, with the recipe to be their own sexual agents. So now that you all have the recipe, know that you can bake your cake and eat it too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Such a great study into agency, and I want to talk in a second how maybe you got into your origins and how you came to this. But with these findings, what would you like to do? How do people become more self-aware and become better agents and have the self-agency?
So that's ultimately the goal of my research, is to one day inform policy development and curriculum change to maybe include sexual agency as a key component to sex ed, so that everyone can learn to be a little bit more agentic and kind of develop these behaviors that are going to fulfill and satisfy more satisfying encounters.
No, that's wonderful. And that's a great. What's the trajectory? How many years do you see until you complete this work?
Probably a lot, because I'm going to do a PhD after this.
Nice.
So I once heard that it takes less time to become a doctor, like a medical doctor, than it does to become a licensed therapist. So here I am.
Okay. I'm a historian, so I don't know either, but I'll go with what you say. I think you'll be wonderful at it. And a little bit more personally, you said you're a proud Franco-Manitoban. And
yes.
So did you want to tell us a little about, you're from rural Manitoba as well? So
yeah, so there's quite a big rural French community in Manitoba. I'm proud to be francophone. So I moved away from Manitoba to just come and do some research because of my supervisor, actually. But I'm very excited to go back home soon.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us. This is great to have you. And everybody put your hands together. Merci bien. Our penultimate contestant, Hayden Weiss in history with virtual human biographies, conversing with history digitally. Hayden.
If you could have a conversation with anyone from history, dead or alive, who would it be? It can be any notable historical figure. And I want you to imagine yourself having a face-to-face conversation with them. Now, we learn the history of people through different ways. Some people have their own preferred method of learning history, whether it be written biographies or biographical film or television shows. But sometimes people don't learn just from reading or watching. A lot of people prefer to learn about someone's life through conversation. That back and forth is super important. And so what if I told you that technology has now made it possible for you to have conversation with someone who is no longer living using virtual humans, like right here on stage. They're digitally recreated and fully animated, so you're able to have a conversation with them. And you might be asking, how do you do that? And that is with conversational artificial intelligence, or AI. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions around AI and how it can be applied in this capacity. It works just like your smartphone. We can verbally ask it questions and receive answers like you would with Siri. It would work the same way here. You could ask this visual depiction of a historical figure about their life, their career, their time in history, and in a digital generated version of their voice, they will respond back to you. And now this is a proven way of learning history in a public context, in museums and different things like that. But there's still a lot of questions that are left to be unanswered in terms of how you can ethically use AI and represent someone historically. How is the information reliable? Is it pulling from the internet? So my research is going to look at those ethics a little bit further. How are we representing people throughout history if they're no longer alive to speak for themselves? How can we make sure that the AI is developed from a closed system, which is very well researched, and that you can get the most accurate representation of that person possible? This is possible through a closed database system, and it has a great opportunity for you to learn history from someone who is no longer living. It can be anyone that you think of. But there are questions around who should be represented. So my research will go into some of these bigger ethical questions. And now you might be wondering, why would you want to learn history from a virtual human? You have that conversation element, but there's also new demands in history for how to write biographies, and education is calling for more immersive technologies to engage different audiences. And with virtual human biographies, you're able to include stories from previously marginalized or silenced people. So this opens up a new diverse range of stories that you're able to tell. So keep that person in mind of who you want to think of, because someday you might be able to speak with them. Thank you.
It's super exciting. It's really, the possibilities of this are great, you know, and I keep on saying all night, I'm a historian, so I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm a historian, so I have some questions for you. The AI, is it being generated from the diaries and original writings of these people? So is it kind of very quickly, is that what you're proposing, that you would actually be, instead of having to read through 500 pages of somebody's diary, you could have an interactive experience in the moment?
Absolutely. So the goal of this research is to redevelop what people have done for biographies in the past and that research method. But this is going to be, how are you going to give voice and essentially digitally reincarnate someone? So looking at those diaries, what would someone say about themselves rather than what other people are saying about that person? So it's really looking for that first person perspective and giving a better, more personal engagement and learning experience.
I think this is great, and one of the things I first thought about when I saw this is that there are these people 50, 60 years ago called Imagineers, and they created a Hall of Presidents where people were talking at Disneyland and things like that, and you worked in Disney World, is that correct? So I'm trying to draw the dots, but were you perhaps inspired by a certain Walt Disney and perhaps bringing history to the public through animated ways?
Yeah, well, I didn't work at Disney World. I've had the opportunity to perform there with a performing troupe, and it was something that I definitely treasured because, as you mentioned, I might love Disney, and I do. Animation and stories have been a big part of my life. It's really fostered my creativity and helped inspire the work that I want to do. I'm also really interested in individual stories and the power that they can have behind them, and how they can inform broader societal things. And so I'm very excited for how this can go on further.
That's incredible. Not only are you inspired, you're inspirational yourself. So let's put our hands together for Hayden. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys,
for bringing this to us tonight. Great work. Well, folks, there's something ringing, because I think that is the all good things come to an end button. We have one last contestant. So start thinking about that. Yeah, that's right. Start thinking about that People's Choice Award, everyone. This is our last contestant, you know, but not least. The great, inimitable James Bacon in anthropology with Undoing the Present, Farming versus Archaeology.
Thank you, and hello. Archaeology is under attack. Agriculture is a major cause in the destruction and loss of archaeological features and our understanding of past humans. My research focused on the Maya site of Kolkochan in Belize. This site is situated next to larger sites such as Kakabis and Lamanai. Here, over the last 50 years, much of the forested area has become exposed and is now just mounds sitting in the plough soil. Plough theory shows that over time, mounds lose their height and elevation. However, they tend to spread, their lengths, their widths are increased. Luckily, we can usually still find them. They are made out of white limestone. This means that they appear within the ploughed landscape. Unfortunately, they are no longer representative, not of the past structures or how they were mostly preserved beneath the jungle canopy. My work focuses on predicting what those measurements used to be to create useful data, data that can be used for settlement studies, for understanding the past, labor investments, and inequality. How we do this is through settlement survey, predictive analysis, and comparison between what remains protected beneath the canopy and what does not. In this way, we can work with agriculture instead of competing with agriculture to make sure that there is a future that we remember the past sustainably. We have a couple of images here just to walk you through what we're doing. We're going through the ploughed soils, we're mapping the mounds, we're measuring the mounds, we're comparing them to what we see under the forest, and we're using LiDAR to guide us. We have here the point cloud against the satellite imagery, and we have an image of what it looks like beneath the canopy to make sure we're doing a good job. Thank you.
Wow, James. What a great way to end things. This is so amazing. And archaeology, so I like the false dichotomy that you bring up. Farming versus archaeology, actually, both is good. So, you know, and I love how you brought it up in the idea of LiDAR to kind of peel back the layers. It's so much different than like Heinrich Schliemann in the old days where you just crush the bodies and you walk through and you don't take numbers. How, you know, what got you into archaeology? Was it reading the old stories about archaeology and thinking I can do better, or were you inspired by something in particular?
I always loved history. I didn't really realize that archaeology existed. I guess there is the Lutheran term, sola fide, sola scriptura, but when I went to what we call secondary school in the UK, I had the opportunity to do a dig, and I have never stopped doing that kind of thing. It's amazing to think back to us, people, and what they were doing the same and what they were doing differently in the past and between each other.
Yeah, I know, it's so fascinating, and it sounds like you've got a good group of people, because you said that one of the things that you enjoy doing is hanging out with UK archaeologists and designing buildings in Minecraft. Is that? Tell us more about that. That sounds sort of interesting.
You went for that one. Yeah, so I mean, I'm an archaeologist. I love spatial studies and spatial settlements, and it's really interesting how we get those to an audience. So I could have put up a settlement in Minecraft to show you, one, that these things are alive, that you can move around and see them instead of looking at a 2D plane or a flat surface. And that's really important to me also, not just, one, I love Minecraft. I'm quite creative, I think. I'm not good at it, but I'm creative. But it's really important how we speak to an audience and how we get that information across, who we're speaking to, be it the older generations or the younger generations, the future.
No, I think that's no, it's great. No, and it's great, and I love how your interests, your fun time interests, also intersect with archaeology. I think that's great, and that Minecraft music is just so mellow. Like, you know, after a hard day digging, of course, you want to just sit down and play some Minecraft, right?
It's my de-stress.
That is great. Well, thank you for joining us. Everyone, put your hands together. James. Thank you. Well, folks, that's it. There you have it. What an incredible lineup this year. And, you know, as I said, it started great, and it just stayed incredible. I don't envy our indefatigable judges. They have such a hard decision ahead of them. I don't envy you, because it is now time for the People's Choice. Make sure you fill that out. It's your turn to be the judge. So at intermission, which is starting momentarily, please fill out the form found in the program if you haven't done so already. get it in, and so our intrepid skills staff, academic skills staff, can tally up the votes. We're going to take 10 to 15 minutes, and in that 10 to 15 minutes, relax, use the facilities, be careful about drinking the water, but there is free food and free coffee and things like that. And if you want, there is, I've heard, a bar here, and you can have an alcoholic beverage or a soft drink for a charge. So we'll see you back here in about 20 minutes, and good luck with the People's Choice. Thank you. Well, everyone, the moment of truth has arrived. So please come back to your seats. And we'll cap off this exciting evening with some fabulous prizes. Well, this is it, the moment we've all been waiting for. But before we get to the prizes, I just want to say, wow. The breadth of research at Trent University in their graduate programs is staggering. Let's have a big round of applause. And I know it's a cliche, everybody that came out is a winner, but you know, some cliches are true. And I think this is true, that everyone here is a winner because they truly put it together out of COVID, brought together this event that had been, languished for a while. People didn't know what they're actually getting into, just like the audience tonight. What do we get ourselves into? And they got into it, and it was amazing. And the poise, the eloquence, the sense of, self and an awareness. I'm just so impressed with these Traill College students, with these Trent University grad students, with these incredible contestants. So let's put your hands together one more time for our contestants. And the votes are in, so can we have our accountant, please? Thank you. I wish I could say this was PricewaterhouseCoopers, but it was Aaron, so thank you very much for doing all the accounting. I got a click. Dink. There we are. And now we're going to get into the prizes, but 1 second. Dink. We'll go back to intermission because before we get to the prizes, we couldn't have the prizes if we didn't have judges. So I want our judges, Kathy, Nicole, and Megan, could you stand up and can we give you a round of applause, please? And I know you're not going to go home empty-handed because there's been so much great knowledge shared with you this evening, but we also have something for you. We also have some fabulous Traill swag. So let's hear it for Traill swag and the judges. This is great. And now I'll go to the clicker. Click. And we will go to the awards. Now, they put Traill as bronze. That makes it sound like we're third place. Traill is not third place. I'm just saying that silver is an awesome color, so that's why, it's not bronze. It is a silver color. It is awesomeness. We funded the People's Choice Award, and I think one of the great things about this whole presentation tonight is that not only is it students, but it's students sharing with the community. That's why we're in Market Hall. We believe in the importance of diffusing our knowledge, right? Because we truly believe at Trent University, education, we breathe this rarefied air, that education makes you a better person. We all believe that. Regardless of your topic, humanities, science, social sciences, education makes you a better person. And when you become a better person, then you guys can go on and make the lives of others better. And that's what we're all here, and that's why we're here with you, because we want to share what we know and make this a better place. And so thank you. Science communication, humanities communication is so important these days. And so this is your foray into being good communicators, and this is so incredible. And so the people, let's see what the people said. The people have spoken, so I'm going to open up the envelope. Okay, it's not really an envelope, but I was doing sound effects just to make it sound cool. Our People's Choice winner is, drum roll, please. Jordan Till, please come up. People have spoken. Don't worry, he'll get a certificate and a check in the mail. Wink, wink, it will happen, so don't worry. And now, it is my honor to call upon Dr. Craig Brunetti, the Dean of Graduate Students, to go with now the bronze, the yellow, I don't know what that color is for, but the lovely yellow in the middle, the Trent Graduate Student Association Award, Dr. Craig Brunetti.
Thank you. And it's gold. So thank you very much. It's actually a pleasure to be back here. It's been a couple of years since we've run the 3-minute thesis back the way it's supposed to be run. And one of the things is this is my favorite event that we run for graduate students, because you just get to see not only the diversity of research that happens at Trent, you just saw like a huge cross-section of what we do, but also the passion that you all bring to your work and your research. That really came through today, and you saw that with the impact that you guys had on the audience. So you guys did an amazing job. It's really challenging to do a 3-minute presentation. I can't even do like a 3-minute speech here, and yet you guys managed to do your whole research project in such a short period of time. So it's an incredible job that you all did, so thank you very much. And so I'm presenting the prize for the TGSA, the second place prize. Can I have my drum roll here? So the second place goes to Sandra, Clement, and Gessen.
That's great, and thank you so much, Craig. We work so closely with Graduate Studies. Craig and Sasha are a great team, and we're here for you guys, and we're so happy to be able to do this tonight. Well, we're down, so we've had 2 down, and now we're 2. Now that's a color I can get behind, Traill Maroon. There we are, the first place prize. But this first place prize is brought to you by actually the School of Graduate Studies. That's how tight we are, and they're using our color now, so I like that. So the School of Graduate Studies, their first place prize, again, that's that $500 and the all expenses paid trip to Kingston, Ontario. Oh yeah, it's going to be sweet. But I would love to call upon my colleague and good friend, Kathy Bruce, Dr. Kathy Bruce, our Vice President of Research, to come on up.
Thanks, Michael. So that was inspiring, wasn't it? For the judges, I'm just going to tell you it was torture and inspiring, both. And we have come to consensus on one thing, and that is that we are the least interesting people in the room. I know brevity is the order of the day today, so I'm going to jump right to this prize. I'm going to say one thing before I do, and that is I have today learned that the Office of Research and the Vice President of Research doesn't have an award up here, so we will bring one forward for next year. I'm literally finding out who was top prize right now. And this is on behalf of Craig in many ways, but on behalf of everyone here, and to thank you all for being here and doing such great work. I know there are supervisors here. I know that we have our past chair of the Board of Governors here. Like, there's a lot of special people here tonight, and they all care about you and the work that you do. So, School of Graduate Studies first place prize goes to Jordan Till.
And there we go. What a great evening. Thank you very much to our prize presenters, and congratulations to our winners. This has been an amazing night. Again, let's put our hands together for our participants as well as our prize winners and all the hard work that they've done. As Dr. Bruce mentioned, there are supervisors and family members in the audience, so let's put our hands together for all the people here who are to support us this evening. So much courage, mettle, focus, good humor. You guys are incredible. But, you know, I started this journey tonight with gratitude for the land, and I just want to end it with gratitude too, because this could not happen if it wasn't for so many people behind the scenes. I want to thank all the people at Market Hall for their help tonight for putting this together. Our judges, again, Dr. Kathy Bruce, Megan Murphy, Nicole Stevenson. Our videographer, Rob Cardis, thank you so much for immortalizing this. To Dr. Autumn Watkinson, who was a 3MT winner elsewhere and came back to help and mentor our participants this year. To our incredible, indefatigable, I could put so many words together for so many adjectives for our academic skills staff. Academic skills is based in the colleges across Trent University, and so I keep talking Traill too, but this was a group effort across all the colleges, and particularly, of course, the Academic Skills Center. So Dr. Sue Beckwith, where are you? Thank you so much. She is the person who really put this all together. To Aaron, to Marisha, to Natalie, to Laura, to Lori, to everyone who helped out from Academic Skills, thank you so much for being here. Just in case you wondered what Academic Skills is about, sidebar, they are the people who not only put together 3MT, but they help students with their writing, their time management skills. They do workshops at Traill online about how graduate students can unlock their potential and be better grad students. So grad students couldn't do it without academic skills, and I can't do it without academic skills, so thank you. Grad studies, again, I can't say enough about Dr. Craig Brunetti. Thanks to Aaron and to Sasha for being here, and to Clay, who is with our communications, but also attached to graduate studies. Thank you very much for being a part of it. Thanks to the TGSA. I know there are many members here, but even though the president couldn't be here, she gives her regrets, and more importantly, she gave us her cash. So thank you very much for all of that. To our Traill College interns, to Morgan and Ashlyn, thank you for being here. To Trent Alumni Affairs, you may have noticed these very swagadelic water things. The Alumni Association gave us these, so thank you very much for helping us with the water. Now I've learned I can't drink it, but thank you very much for offering it to us. One final word. Participants, I love you all, and please stay in your seats when this is over, because we're going to do, for instruction, because we're going to do a group photo afterwards, okay? And because I love you all, you're going to be at the bottom of the pyramid, and I get to be on the top, because that's, because you're such great people. Thank you. So stay here for photos, and to everyone else, thank you for coming out. It's been amazing. We'll see you back here, 3MT 2024, next year. Thanks again.